Hi YouTubers, thrill seekers, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, unwanted pets and relatives. Today we are here to discuss the 10th Amendment in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. Now in this episode we have to discuss terms like enumerated powers, implied powers, and necessary and proper clause. But before we get into these components, let's have a reading of the 10th Amendment.
10. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people.
So what do you think that means? I want to take a few seconds so you can pause this video, talk amongst the class, or if you're watching this as a homeschooler, what does this mean? I don't want you to have a law degree, just instinctively, the basic meaning. What do you think? Take some time. The 10th Amendment is restating this concept of federalism, shared powers between a federal government and state or local governments. I want you to notice where it says the powers not delegated to the United States, that would be the federal government. So powers that are not written in this Constitution, nor prohibited by the states, okay, are left to the people. So there's a two-tiered process here. What they're saying, the founders, the writers of this document, is number one, if it's not found in this Constitution, then the federal government has no business being involved. They have no authority, no jurisdiction. They shouldn't even be in the conversation. And then two, if the states have not addressed whatever the issue is, then it's up to the people to decide whether they want to have this right, have this liberty, have this choice or not. When we use the term power, we're not talking about some transformational, extraordinary, supernatural power. When discussing certain powers, two terms are going to come up. One is enumerated power.
A what?
Enumerated powers are those powers explicitly enumerated or listed in the Constitution. These are powers that are explicitly given to the federal government. There are about 30 to 35 enumerated specific powers in the Constitution given to the federal government. But I want you to realize is they are limited enumerated powers, very specific list of things the federal government is supposed to be in charge of. James Madison, known as the father of our Constitution, says it plainly that the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which remain to the state governments are numerous and indefinite. So I think we can clearly see that the 10th Amendment is repeating this idea that the Congress and the federal government have specific powers found in the Constitution, and whatever the Constitution does not give, whatever powers it does not give the federal government, that's up to the states and to the people. We have to bring up this idea of implied powers.
A what?
Implied powers are those powers which they're not explicitly written in the Constitution, but by given a certain authority, such as coining money. That comes with implications. Well, if I can coin money, I can also put a seal on the coin, or I can put an inscription on the coin. That's not written in the Constitution, but obviously if I have the power to coin money, I have that power too. And this principle is what the progressives did to expand federal authority. Through the use of the Commerce Clause and the Necessary and Proper Clause, liberal and progressive justices and lawyers and politicians slowly started to work loose this idea of strict authorities given to the federal government, and they started to stretch the Constitution, and they started to give the federal government more power. So let's have a reading of the Necessary and Proper Clause found in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18. Now again, we'll have a reading, and if you feel the need, pause this video and read it for yourself, and do not be intimidated. Words mean what they mean. What do you think it means? We'll be right back.
To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States, or in any department or officer thereof.
Contained, etc., etc., fax mentis incendium gloria calcum, etc., etc., memo bis punitor delicatum. It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
Justices and lawmakers and progressives and liberals have used this clause along with the Commerce Clause, which is an enumerated power. Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce among the states, and this Necessary and Proper Clause to say we could legislate whatever we want. But if you read the clause, it says no. Whatever you need to do to pass laws that you're allowed to pass, go ahead and do those things. So for example, when it says coin money, all it says is coin money. Well, obviously the Constitution can't spell out every specific action taken to coin money. So the Necessary and Proper Clause is in there to say, look, we've given you this authority, do whatever you have to do to see it through. That's not how it is today. We have gone so far from our original Federalist principle that as recent as 2009, the court has ruled that the Necessary and Proper Clause grants the federal government broad legislative authority. I'd like to end this episode with just a few instances of where the federal government has placed itself in an authoritative role, which you might not even know. The Constitution gives it no authority whatsoever. And even if you think some of these ideas are good, I want you to remember that if we as a society are changing and we think the government should be involved in these areas, then they should amend the Constitution and give the federal government those powers. Instead, we just ignore the Constitution altogether and pass whatever we want. It's getting a little scary today because now the government and the Supreme Court seem to be working in tandem on ways to take our freedoms away and ignore the language found in the 10th Amendment. That if it's not written, the government has no business being involved. See you next time.
A what?